We're rolling. We're a little behind schedule, but what the heck? I've got the lights on, with the front going. I can hear that too. It's rained every day this week. Morning. On this ride, Paul and I left Northampton. We were running really behind schedule, so we took the direct route through Sterling Ridge. Right on Sterling Ridge, we got passed by a group. We chased back up to them. We rode to them on Fish Creek. Paul let us go, so I waited because he and I were actually going to the lake. Those guys were just going to Taco Corner. We went out on Highway 830 to 1097. We filmed on 1097. Then we came back and went across the lake. We filmed while crossing the lake. Then we took the forest, that's off camera. We rode into the forest, came down 149, and we stopped at Taco Corner. After that, we headed out, cut back through the neighborhood. We started filming our favorite road, Honia Egypt Road, all the way back into the woodlands. It was kind of a muggy day because of the rains we had. It's rained every day during the week, but I think that you all will enjoy the clips that we're able to get for you. Very pleasant day for a bike ride. Trying to catch a group. We had been passed by a group on Sterling Ridge. We're on Branch Crossing here, and we decided later on to ride with them because they had invited us to join them when they went by. So it probably took us about a couple of kilometers to catch them. It's still early in their ride. They leave from the Whole Foods in the area called Hughes Landing in the Woodlands near River Road. So right here we're closing the catch, and then Paul has suggested I'll go ahead and turn on the camera. So back off the power, we're on the tail end of the group right here. I'm still carrying the camera. I had the camera when Paul suggested I turn on the camera as we wrap up this chase. And so I'm still holding it a little bit. I will give it to him.
I see the girl, it's not a sergeant. Hey, looks like the head of same phone. It's not her.
Makes sense. But they don't leave till 7:30. Yeah, Paul had thought that when the group went by that a rider from Mo's group was in there. But he was mistaken. That's what he's talking about. And the only person I recognized in this group when they went by was Rudy. And you would hear me because Paul said, no, that's not Rudy. And once we get to the corner, you would hear me say, it looks like Rudy. You kind of know people when you've ridden with them just from their form and their style.
Where did you guys start see.
So we're approaching a branch crossing.
Yeah, that's our group right there.
There was some riders that went straight on branch crossing off camera. The camera didn't really pick them up. That's what Paul's talking about. I thought it was the Team IR guys. Could be.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But
It's you?
I told you, man. I told you.
Yeah.
Rudy, I said that looks like Rudy. And Rudy said, yeah, it's me. And that's what I told Paul. I said, I told you.
Okay, yeah, what hammer you got? Yeah, I told you, man.
So they asked if we're going to go with them. I asked them where they were going. They said they're going to Taco Corner. I said, yeah, we'll hang with you guys. Because we're headed out there. At this point, we had not decided what we're going to do as usual.
Hey, Adrian.
We'll wait till we head
All right,
out.
man.
And then we make our decision once we get out. So the dynamics in a group like this is different. There's a lot of accelerations. There's very rare for you to find steady pace, especially after intersections. People are always accelerating at the front. And if you're behind, you've got to be vigilant and stay close. Otherwise, you waste a lot of energy closing gaps. Because if the group takes off at the light and you leave a gap, you have to close it. And that's gonna use a lot of energy. So when you're in a group, stay close to the wheels if you're gonna ride with them. And I'm going to demonstrate that. You will see the differences here. I'm using a very high cadence because the speeds are changing all the time. And for most people, this is very high. I'm pedaling 119, 122, then I soft pedal right there. But that allows me to accelerate with very little force from my legs. So I'm taxing my aerobic system. And you have to train accordingly to be able to handle these high cadence accelerations. So you basically end up saving your legs once you get acclimated to riding like that. I changed the way I'm putting things in my pocket just to kind of see. I tried it earlier in the week. I put my essentials kit in the middle. And it seems to be working pretty well. I love the way it feels. It's going to vary depending on what I'm carrying from week to week. But I'm always playing around with how I distribute things. Watch when we turn. Look at the power. That's where you expend the energy. I'm not really going that hard, but you can see 300 and some watts. So you need to stay close because if you're further behind, you're going to expend energy just to get back up to speed anyway. And then if you leave a gap, you've got to overcome that resistance of not being in the wheels. So falling behind when you follow the group, if you're going to ride with them, is inefficient. You stay close and save your energy so when it's time to really ride, you have plenty left and your legs are fresh. It's a humid morning. You know, we've had rain the whole week. So most of us are damp, but as you're riding, it evaporates to where you don't. You're not dripping wet if you're wearing the right kit.
Okay. Hey, Jerry.
So we met Jerry here. He's not on camera. You'll see him later. Once Paul decides to let us go, they come around him. You'll see Jerry.
A sauna with another sauna and another rider. I don't know his name. Yeah, they were together.
They were talking about a couple of riders from the WCC group had passed us while we were warming up, and Jerry was asking about it. It's early in the ride, we're warming up, quiet roads, so people are spread out a little more. When you're riding like this, the guy on the left here, you need to be concerned about cars. See that car coming? Gotta watch for that. Gotta close it up. So we're trying to get out to the open road. Once we get out on the open road, and the speeds pick up, people automatically tighten up the line. You don't you don't have to say anything, because the people who don't are going to be working their tail off, and they're either going to have to get in the line or maybe choose to work that hard. But most riders will automatically go single file or whatever kind of line you guys are holding. They told us they're only going to taco corner and back. We're doing a little more than that. They turn here. The Team RR guys turn at the next intersection. It was just one block earlier. Pavement's a little crappy. Turn. So at the intersection coming up, you will see a lady in this group. After the light changes for us to go, she's still standing there. You hear me ask her if she's okay. She says yeah. Then I told her come on, because as we turn, the speeds pick up immediately. I didn't see her again, even among the people that were gapped on the highway when Paul decided to let us go. I didn't see her in the caboose that came around before I decided to wait for Paul. So that means she never even got on this tail end of this line right here. So if you want to ride with a group, when you stop like this, be vigilant, be alert, be ready to clip in and go. She's on the left. You will hear me ask her if she's okay. Right there. And I said, come on, because right there, she's not even clipped in. She looks like she's reaching in her pocket. Look at where I am. Now, right here, look at this gap that Paul has to close. That's where the energy goes. You've got to be close to the wheels. You got to be in there. Because now we're backing off. Look at my watts, 96. So we're backing off while they're still riding up to us. All of that saps your energy.
How are you? All right, I'm good.
I told Rudy he's already wet because he squeezed his gloves and perspiration dripped. And so he said, oh, I warmed up to meet this group. He rides from the east side of 45 and then comes into the Woodlands. So that's what he's telling me. He said, oh, I didn't just start riding. And I told him, I know. I don't wear very heavy gloves when it's hot. In fact, since we're doing our own thing, really, I'm not even wearing gloves. Make sure you're comfortable with your bike handling and comfortable with your bike before you start riding without gloves, because you're more at risk if you fall. Your hands don't have the extra protection that gloves give you. Most times in the group, depending on the weather, I will try to wear gloves. But when it's very sticky and hot, I just, when the tape I have on my bars, I prefer to just go bare hands because the leather tape is not slippery. But still, it's better to wear gloves to protect your hands. So mostly fall, spring, winter, I always wear gloves. But when it's sticky and muggy, when I ride solo, I'll ride bare hands most of the time. So as you ride more and you get more experience and you choose to ride without gloves, just be aware that your hands are more vulnerable should you crash. Not that the gloves protect you against everything, but it's good to have that extra layer of protection. But when it's just Paul and I'm bare hands most of the time. That was our plan today, was to just, since we're running behind anyway, we're just going to head out and do our own thing. But because we're with this group, look at the speeds, 45 kilometers an hour. That's about 27 miles an hour. So most of the time we're doing 27, 28 miles an hour. That's the benefit of being in a group. So between 26, 28 miles an hour is where we're cruising with these guys. And when we get down this hill, once the road levels off, after that point it starts going up. So we're dealing with repeated rollers. So the efforts really hit you. And if the recovery is not top notch, it's hard on the body. That's the main reason Paul lets us go, because he's not recovering as quickly as he was 6 weeks ago, because he's been off for a month. So when we ride, after we let the group go, I do most of the pulling, because that way I get to work and he can sit in the draft and work a little less.
Yeah, I got it. Well, the pressing out all the time.
He was telling me that the camera was facing a little more upwards than we're used to, and I told him that later on, it wasn't here, I told him that I leave that a little loose so that we can adjust it when we go in the drops to get a different view, but he just wasn't aware I had left it a little looser than we normally have. So it gives us more flexibility. So he was just letting me know, hey, this thing was loose. So we'll go through like a train. Since the first guys got the green, we're at we like the middle. There's a bunch of riders behind us. Drift a little to the left, and once they start going again, I'll drift back behind Rudy. There's always that yo-yo. That's why you gotta be in a proper gear, so every time they accelerate, you're not straining. You just spin the gear. See the watts? 500 plus. We're working hard here. Now this is a huge gap. Paul should be closer. That costs you energy. Pay for it later. So we're doing about 26 miles an hour. I'm right at sweet spot. See, you can tell when the pace picks up. The acceleration is instant. And if you're not in the proper gear or you're not alert, you hit the wind. As the road goes around the curve in the distance, there's a slight grade. So these grades are felt more than seen on Fish Creek. But that's where you have to put in the effort. And then here you can kind of soft pedal, catch a drink, get ready, but stay alert. Always be alert. Stay close to the wheels in front of you. Because even if you're very tired, psychologically, if you're on a wheel, you can grit your teeth longer and say, man, I'm going to try to hold this wheel. Versus you're trying to close to a wheel when the power is being applied. It's hard. That's why you need to be fitted to your bike. Because when you need to go faster, you shouldn't have to be moving around. You just pedal harder. There's a light coming, it's short. And it changes. I let them know green up. There's quite a few riders. There's 2 or 3 riders in front of us here I'm watching. They look like they're struggling. The guy in front of Rudy. Rudy's on my right. That guy in the purple and light and a few white spots on his jersey there. He's struggling. I can tell. And so the reason is I keep my eye on riders like that because that's where the gaps will happen. And when the gaps occur, you need to be able to go around them quickly. So when you're following people that look like they're struggling and they're about to fall off their pace, as soon as a half bike lane opens and it looks like they're not closing it, you want to get around them quickly and get in there so you're not closing a large gap. Now Paul is following better here. That's where he needs to be, right there. Somebody's pulling off the front. You can see how the power drops when I soft pedal. The power display on this thing on the right is 3 seconds. The power display on the left is actual power. So it's gonna jump around more. The one on the left, the one on the right is giving you the average for 3 seconds of power data. So it's slightly smoother. But they eventually get there. You can see the 3 second will get to 0 slightly after the actual power jumps. And the same thing will happen. The actual power will jump quicker, and then the 3 second will have to average his way up there. So you can see it's like 369. The other one was 4 something and they flip. But that's the way you want to do it, especially if you're studying the data. I stay on the right here. We're going up a climb. You can see the watts, almost 500. We're doing about 22, 23 miles an hour, up a 2% grade. It's going to go 2 to 3%. It's going to continue. Riders are struggling. That rider on the right is falling off the pace. She's falling off the pace. The guy who I was concerned about, he's to the right. He's falling off the pace too. Then these guys were behind Paul, and they're coming around. This is where Paul decides to let us go. That's me in the distance. Once those guys that were behind Paul came around, I looked and noticed he wasn't there. Knowing that we're going further and we were gonna do our own thing, these guys will only go into Taco Corner. I went ahead and turned off the power. So I'm just kind of, I wouldn't call it soft pedaling. I'm riding, but not hard, so he can catch up. We're about probably 3 kilometers from the overpass. So we go straight on the overpass and we go to the lake. I just keep the effort in zone 2. I figure he'll ride up to me. Because with those guys, I was in sweet spot, so I just dropped it a couple of zones.
My heart rate hit 171, I had to back off.
We're at the lake. But we're not at the biggest part of the lake. Look at that. That's pretty.
So what Paul was talking about is that his heart rate kept spiking and his recovery was not happening as quickly as he is used to. So he decided to not stay at 171 for an extended period of time. You know, it'll take him a few weeks to where he can work on his recovery. So when we ride together on this ride, I stay at the front longer so I can get the work I need, and then he can sit in and get to stress his system because he missed a block of training. And this will give him a chance to acclimate. These bumps where they connect the bridges, I kind of on-weight the pedals to go across them. We're headed west on the FM 1097 towards Lake Conroe. I use the mirror to keep my eye on traffic before I move over. There was a lot of little debris. When there's a lot of debris, if you have to go through them, stand up, because there's other stuff that you can't see usually in those little rocks and stuff. That's where you can get little punctures. We had come down that road in the past with Team RR from the north side. It's called Long Street.
Yeah, that's the one we came down that way.
It was very windy that day. So as the light changes, as I go, I keep my eye on the traffic. I'm always just glancing, making sure what's happening behind me, you know. So when we got near the forest, Paul was pulling, and he was pulling so well, I told him, well, it's kind of early to go to Taco Corner, let's go north. So we ended up going through the forest because he started to ride better. So it's going to take him a few weeks to get back to the fitness he had. Once you miss a block of training, it's kind of hard like that. Even if you're riding indoors, it's not the same. You got to get some high intensity rides in your legs. When I stand, I keep my eye on Paul. And what I try to do is to keep the effort about the same. I'm barely creeping out of zone 2. But I try to keep it right there so that even though I'm standing and he's sitting, the tempo is about the same. I stand to work harder. And because it feels different, it feels better. So I've been sitting for a while. But sometimes it just feels good to stand for a little bit. You can see when I sit, the watts drop. You're not recruiting as many muscles as when you stand. This is not very aerodynamic, but it sure feels good at this point. It's a little sticky. But once we hit the lake, I will zip my jerseys up because the lake has a lot more wind than right here. And I just didn't want that thing flapping too much. So yeah, the lake is coming up. So what I do is I go ahead and I've got to get that zipper down in there. And I zip it up. Not all the way, about halfway. This is the Suki sports jersey. You can see how well it fits me. So riding consistently with the right training plan, that's the key, because otherwise it's hard to maintain your fitness over a long period of time. Getting windier as we approach the larger expanse of the lake here. So I get low and I try to settle into some kind of rhythm here. It's not as windy as it has been in the past in this lake. So it was a calmer day. So it's important that you have your fit checked and rechecked if you have any discomfort. If you look at my feet, they look like they're slapping the pedals. That comes from having those cleats aligned properly and 4/2 on the cleats adjusted right. Your feet should not be getting numb when you ride. That indicates a problem with your setup. Listen to that breeze. It's nice. I mean, it was very comfortable crossing the lake. I actually enjoyed the wind on here. I get a little lower to kind of maintain my rhythm. Sometimes being in the drops just feels good when you need to counterbalance your pedaling. If you're not able to use the drops on your bike, you're not set up correctly. You should be able to use all the positions on your bars. There are at least 6 positions on a standard road bar. This time of year, I lighten the load on everything. The socks are lightweight socks. Jerseys lightweight. You've got to do that. It's just too humid to wear heavy stuff. You should have socks for warm weather and socks for very hot weather. So as we approach the end of the lake, I tried to keep the pace the same. So I'm driving the pedals even harder because the wind is picking up. And there's a slight grade. There was a slight grade back there, and then once we exit, there's going to be an incline as soon as we hit land. I think I end up standing here just to change the rhythm. Yeah, right there. I gotta stand just to change things up. I try to keep the rhythm steady. So it does not affect the person following you that much. So they don't have to raise their pace when you stand. So in a little while, I think we stop running the camera, and then we switch it back on when we get on Honia Egypt Road. Because after this, Paul comes to the front and pulls for about probably 10 kilometers until we get to the forest. And then I was like, okay, let's go through the forest. I thought he was gonna be tired, but you know, once he got fully warmed up, it was fun.
Hey, legends. Come on, before it closes. We're sneaking out through the entrance gate here because there's no car behind us. On the way back, wrapping up another ride.
The hat I'm wearing is specifically designed for hot weather. It's not a cotton cap that we'll wear in the winter. So don't wear a cotton cap when it's humid and hot. You will overheat. That cap is made out of polyester elastane, like our jerseys. So it breathes really well. So I either use a bandana or I use those lightweight hot weather caps to keep the sweat out of my eyes. And I like the bill on that cap. It keeps the sun out of my eyes as well. You have to adjust the bill properly so that it doesn't block your view when you're in the riding position. So the biggest thing is when it's very hot, you want to make sure you have enough water. You don't want to run out. So we stop at least every 2 hours and we load up, even if it's just stopping at a park to get some water. I'm adjusting that mirror on the left side. I must have bumped it or something. I adjusted it where I don't need to turn my head to see. Just move my eyes. So by keeping the pace steady for Paul, it's almost like he's motor pacing. He can decide, oh, I'm going to drift back a little bit, then I'm going to speed back up to him. Like if he's messing with the camera, he knows my pace is consistent, and so he can adjust his effort better. You know, you can't do that in a group because the group's surging. But this will allow him to get in shape quickly. So if you've ever done motor pacing, this is somewhat like it, because he could sit behind and vary his cadence based on how he feels. Trying to avoid the area that's been graded so that feels smooth. And you will see one will come to it's really bumpy, and what Paul will do is he'll hold up the camera so it doesn't rattle, because it's a little trickier around the last curve before the hill that gets us out of the Honia Egypt Road to Fish Creek. I stand up here just to keep the gear rolling, because this is a slight grade. And we're going into the wind. In the summer, most of the time, the wind is from the southeast in our area. And that's what we're dealing with today. So by doing that, I don't have to downshift. I just stand a few strokes, because it's a short grade. Just gonna kick the gear over and sit back down and get back into the rhythm. We've got that climb coming at the end, so I'm keeping the effort to where my legs are not gonna protest too much when we get to that climb. Paul's adjusting the camera. I think he put it in the drops. You'll notice that you'll get a different view, more of a lower view. I think that's what he's doing there. So this is what I was talking about. So he was messing with the camera, so now he opened a gap. Well, he's got to work to close that gap. So even though the pace is steady, he's challenging himself. And then sometimes he'll drift back to intentionally work harder as we're riding, because I can see in the mirror where he is. It's okay to do this when you're riding, let's say 1 or 2 riders, and you want to do that. But in the group, if you do that, you will just work so much harder, because you don't know when they're going to accelerate and gap you. And every time you close the gap, it takes a lot out of you. So he knows I'm going to keep the effort the same. So like I was doing like 20 miles an hour, 19 to 20 into the wind. So he's going to just do what he's doing back here. He's going to pick up the camera here as we go around this curve. I'm going to ride the edge. He's going to ride the graded surface, because he's more comfortable with that in that curve. It's very narrow, and then you got those reflectors. So you don't. So he held the camera up so it wouldn't rattle too much. So I downshift here a bit because the wind picks up and we're heading slightly up, and then it's going to kick up in the distance. You can see it coming. Right about here it starts to kick up. Well, I plan to use like a 62-inch gear. I'm staying on a big chainring, and I think I ride a 5323. I have a 27 tooth cog on there. For this 5%, I don't need it. But I stay in the 5323, which is like a 3917. I stand when we hit the 5%, that's where this is right here, to get over the gradient. And then once the gradient goes down a little bit, changes the rhythm, and then I sit. But the whole time I'm doing that, I'm keeping my eye on the other road users. That truck was back there. That's why you saw me pretty much on the edge of the pavement. In a little while, you'll see me wave Paul away from the edge because there's a piece of barbed wire that is lying across the road. And we don't see it till we come up on it. That's another reason you have to constantly be reading the road. You'll see me wave him over. So we go around the barbed wire. Right there. There's a piece of barbed wire. There's some fencing in that bush, and it looked like a piece broke off and is lying on the road. You know, the cars have been rolling over it, so it's kind of down there, but still, you don't want to go over barbed wire on a bike because one of those things can puncture your tire. I think at this point I shift up a little bit. I'm trying to keep my rhythm about the same. I think it's somewhere in the curve I'm going to shift up to like a 53-21, which is like a 65-inch gear or something like that. Like a 39-16 or something like that. So in the group, I use larger gears. I pedal harder on this climb. But when we're riding solo, I want to feel the effort throughout. And so what I do is I use a gear that I can turn as the pitch deepens. I want to be able to turn it comfortably without breaking our rhythm, without surging and that kind of stuff. So the dynamics are different when you're in the group. We're going directly into the east wind here. So the wind is coming from straight in front and the right. It's a slight grade right here, and then right up front it's going to level off and then go to the right and go downhill. And all I do is I make sure I get in the appropriate gear to keep my rhythm consistent. I'm staying a little to the right so Paul can have a little more room. He's slightly off to my left. So if I were riding solo, I would be where Paul is. I'm staying to the right so both of us can just use this half of the lane, which enables the drivers to see around us easier and execute their pass. You are not required to do that. It's just a courtesy. We're approaching Fish Creek Thoroughfare in the distance. It's almost noon, so you know, the town is up and we're coming back in town. So the volume of cars increase. I actually prefer riding out of town. So we stopped behind this car. Since they took the time to pass us, there's no point sneaking on the right side and all that kind of foolishness I see cyclists doing. Just wait. You know, because it's like there's not a perfect shoulder here, so we're using the road anyway. You could do it here. I mean, you could, because the shoulder continues, that's fine, but it just made sense to just sit behind them. And then right here, we just get back on the shoulder. So you could have gone, but most of the time resist the urge to slide by the right side of cars and then get back in front of them when they've taken the time to pass you, especially on roads that don't have shoulders to where both of you sharing the lane. If they've taken the effort to pass you, let them stay in front, get behind them, and let them go on by their business and you continue your ride. You can see it's hot. Look at that sky. It warmed up and it felt very hot when we stopped. When we were moving, it's very pleasant. So it was a fabulous day to be on the bike. That's why we rode as long as we did. We did not plan to ride over 5 hours. But once we got out there, everything felt good. Paul was riding so well coming back on 1097. I told him, hey man, let's go visit the forest. He's like, yep. That's what you gotta do. You don't feel great, shorten the ride. Feel great, extend the ride if you have time. So I hope you got a chance to get out there and get some K's in. This is part of what we did on Saturday. So right here, this light is red. We couldn't get over to make our left turn. So we turned into this little street here in the subdivision, do a U-turn. And then the light happened to still be green. So I told him we can make it and we sneak across.